Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I started watching Star Trek in chronological order. I watched Enterprise and now I'm watching Discovery. I went to season 2. About halfway through, I realised I forgot the short treks. I went back and watched them. I just did a review for them as a whole. I went through all of them, took about 20 minutes. It was a bit rough because I hadn't really planned to do that. But this, I just wanted to do a bit of an overview of the second season. The second season, for me, was more enjoyable than the first season. I didn't really like the first season. I pretty much hated the first season originally. And I didn't particularly like this, but I did see that it was better. They had Pike, they had the Enterprise. They just had one story for the season, whereas season 1 was trying to tell like the story of Michael Burnham and the Shinzu, and then they tried to do the Klingon War, and then they tried to do the Mirror Universe, and they were trying to be too many things because originally it was supposed to be an anthology show and it was going to be a year on each sort of different sort of area of Starfleet or Star Trek, and it was a bit of a mess. This one, they just have one story, the Red Angel, and there's a few episodes within the series that I felt worked almost like Star Trek episodes, because this series isn't interested in being Star Trek or being serious science fiction. It's basically science fantasy melodrama, and they're really not making this for Star Trek fans. So to harp on the fact that it isn't Star Trek and sort of ignore what it is a bit so I'm just trying to look at this show, and I have just been watching it just as its own show and not sort of holding it to the title that it has as a Star Trek show, and it works as fine as like science fantasy YA, just CW level fun, and that's what most of it is, and it works. The characters are interesting, the acting is good, the set design production is good. It doesn't look like Star Trek, doesn't match with the original Star Trek series or any of the other Star Treks. But on its own, it's a beautiful production design. That's why I bought books on it, because I like the art of it. But this season is about the Red Angel appearing and leaving signals around the galaxy or universe, which is really just a way of leading the Enterprise to be where it needs to be, with all the parts in place that it needs to actually take on control and the AI. Because this is all about the evolution of, I guess it's control. I don't know where it starts. Does it start as just the general computing of that sort of era? But either way, it evolves thanks to the data from this sphere, and it basically goes into the future, destroys all of sentient life, and then comes back to try and stop things. And I'm not quite sure why it goes back in time really. If it's destroyed everything in the future, what is it going back for? I guess it wants to just eliminate everything earlier or something. There are a few things that are a bit timey-wimey, where it's like, I want to judge it, but then I think of all the other time travel stories that don't make any sense either. And basically one of the big complaints I've heard some people saying, like Rotmeyer Burnett, was that this doesn't make any sense because they destroy control. Leland is killed, so why do they have to go into the future? I'm like, because the AI is still going to evolve. Just because they killed one version of it, like one person, because he's acting like a sister person, like an individual. I'm like, no, it's an overall thing, and this is just one embodiment of it, and they have to do it that way so they can defeat it, so then they can win. Because if they didn't, even the Discovery going to the future, they'd still have, the Enterprise would still be left there to defend itself against Leland's fleet. So the reason why it goes inert when he dies, just like so many stories have that sort of situation, is for that reason. So they do have to keep going into the future. They have to stop the AI from happening in the first place, because just because they destroyed Leland doesn't mean they actually destroyed all of the AI and stopped it from evolving, or stopped the evolved AI from actually doing things. So that was a stupid argument. I see a lot of people making stupid bad faith arguments with this show, and I hate that I sort of was sucked into a lot of it and didn't look at the show objectively, like the whole sonar in space thing from last season, where people went on about, the show's so stupid they think that sonar works in space. They were never using sonar, they were using other methods, and they just referred to it as working like sonar but in space. but they were never actually using sonar. So people either were stupid and couldn't understand that, weren't listening, or just out of bad faith were just using that as an argument because they could make it sound, stupid. So a couple little highlights in this season is the sphere episode where they find this sphere. I can't say sphere. This sphere, and they have to download all its knowledge to sort of save it because it's going to be destroyed and it needs to leave its legacy, and it doesn't want to be erased or eliminated or lost. There's the episode where they get Hugh back by sort of trapping themselves in the mycelial network, which is visualized almost like an ocean of light, and the ship is like half in and half out of it, which I just love the visuals of, and the way that works with the crew sort of in the ship that's half flooded basically. There are a few episodes that just worked that felt like Star Trek, like New Eden felt like an episode of Star Trek dealing with the Prime Directive, where they find a bunch of humans that have been moved from Earth in World War III to save them, and now they've been transplanted onto this planet in the future, and they've created their own religion and their own culture based on what the Red Angel did, and they sort of can't interfere. But Pike does interfere with one person who he privately takes aside and says, yes, it's all true, we're from another planet, there's aliens, here's a power cell, just don't tell anyone. We couldn't let you, we know that you know what's happening here, so we didn't want to lie to you and have you spend the rest of your life being tortured by it. Yes, it's all true, respect basically your culture and your people by not contaminating your culture with this information that we're giving you, which is what I guess he does. There's also the episode where the shuttle is caught by like a probe that comes back as like a squid monster. There's a few just little episodes that just work as episodes, and like I said, even though the Klingons are there, they have changed. The D7s look like D7s, the Klingons have hair, and yes, the fact that they supposedly shave their head when they go into battle, we haven't seen that anywhere else in Star Trek, but maybe that tradition changed after this. It's plausible. So there's a few moments like that, and there are a few things that don't work, like the time crystals, like the Telosians not looking like Telosians, like the Klingons don't look like Klingons. The Klingons, you can sort of say it's a subsect, it's a different race within the Klingon Empire that maybe they fell out of favour later on, just like the sort of the science ones were the flat-headed ones that came from the science class, came from the curing the disease, and then the warrior class, the ones who are sort of in charge, and there are ways to look at it, ways to get away with it. Why they created these problems that they had to explain and headcanon their way around, I don't know, but they did. But there's no way to explain why the Telosians look genetically different. There's no amount of timeline changes could really affect evolution like that. A whole universe change, you could explain why they look different. But yes, there's things like that that just don't work with the show. They do pull you out of, for the most part, just okay episodes. And I didn't give the show enough of a chance because I was really stuck on the canon issues. And like I said, once they established that it's a different timeline and there's multiple timelines thanks now to the Red Angel, I'm not bothered. That element of it doesn't bother me. And the rest of it, I would like this show to be a serious science fiction show, but it's not. And it's not because they tried and failed, it's because they don't even want it to be. They want it to be a fun science fantasy show that anyone can watch. The idea is to get new audiences and to not have to rely on just the hardcore Trekkies and just giving them like quality sci-fi. I'd prefer they do that because I feel like the rest of the audience will come with it if it's good. But either way, the show is not as bad as people make out. Most people who hate the show are misogynists and racists who just can't handle gay people, trans people, and a black woman being in command or being the centre of everything. And she's not a Mary Sue. She trained on Vulcan. She went to Starfleet. Why she has so much skill, it still doesn't put her in the Mary Sue category. But she's annoying. And I'm glad that she does get called out in the show for being annoying and making everything about her and always trying to save everyone like she's like the centre of the universe. They do point that out as a character flaw, as some sort of narcissism. So yeah, either way, I enjoyed the second season more than the first season. I did actually enjoy some episodes, even though parts don't work and pulled me out, time crystals, things like that. For the most part, I actually enjoyed the show. And I'm kind of a little bit ashamed to admit it because of how much I trashed it before, but that was mostly in the context of they were claiming it was all the same continuity and canon and timeline and everything, when they've now established that it's not. They're still saying it's the same universe, which it still can't be, but at least we're halfway to acknowledging what the show really is, which makes it easier to accept. Doesn't chafe as much. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the second season of Star Trek Discovery.